My name is Jennifer. I just recently moved to the West Linn area about 1 year ago. Before that, our family lived in upstate New York. We have 3 children, 2 in Bolton and 1 in Athey Creek, and I was a school board member there for 6 years. We went through kind of the ups and downs of the pandemic, as well as getting some COVID money and then having that be taken away. So it's very heartening to see that our district is coming together and addressing these issues as well. So just real quick, school budgets, I'm not a finance person, my background is engineering, but I think for us all to kind of understand a little bit better, we just think about it in terms of our family finances. We all have income and we all have expenses. So we all want to have more income and less expenses, right? So just very simply, that's really what it's all about. Today, we're going to be really focused on the general fund, which means all the money that is used to pay for salaries and buying stuff, like paper, computers, things like that. There's also other buckets of money that are in other funds, specifically like capital fund. So those are money that is used for building buildings or renovating. So we're not really going to touch on that too much today. So you'll see up there in the red circle is our general fund for this year is 159 million approximately. And that takes up about 58% of our total money. So that's more than half. Okay, let's go to the next one. Just a brief note about how budgets are created. I'm sure our board members here can also enlighten us more. I'm very new here to the district, so it's very different than how I'm sort of used to it working. But basically, so please correct me if I'm wrong, the superintendent, the administration gets all the feedback, all the information, usually from teachers, administrators. They build a budget, and then that goes towards the budget committee. And the budget committee is represented by community members, and they're all volunteers who are selected by the district, and they work together on that. And then once they get their input, then it goes to the board, and then the board will approve that budget, and then that's our budget. So the way that it works in many other states, the community also has to vote on the budget. It's not how it works in Oregon State, which I was surprised to find. So I think that's one thing that's a little bit different for me, but I just want to kind of put that out there as that it's not the only way that it works, that there's some communities will have to have. Every person vote yes or no on the budget, and if it passes, great. If it doesn't pass, then it goes back to the drawing board. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's just some historical numbers of our West Linn Wilsonville general fund. So going back to 2018, our revenue has actually been increasing, even though our enrollment has decreased. So that's a good news. We actually are getting more money. We can dig into the details of all those money, where it's coming from, but looking at those numbers is very encouraging. So we did get about $6 million of COVID funding over the years of 2021, 22, and then 22, 23. Now that money is not gonna be coming back. That's federal money. So we're not expecting that to be coming back. And this year, 24, 25, we're not getting any of it. So, that's one part of that. So let's go to the next slide. This is the projected versus actual expenses. Let's see, okay. So projected is the orange. So every year, we project expenses for the next year. So around, I'd say April, May, June is the time that we build the budget for the next year. So in this year, around May timeframe, we're gonna be building the budget for 25, 26. So at that time, we don't really know yet how much money we're really gonna be spending. So that's the orange bar that you see for every year. And then the green bar is how much money we actually spent. So we don't know that number until that school year is completely finished. So you'll see that for the 2023-24 bar, we actually don't have the final numbers yet from that year. We're still waiting for all the accounting to be completely tied up for 23-24. That number, basically the slashed bar there, that number was from the final report of May 2024. So we think that's pretty close to what that will be. But the nice thing that we see is that we're always spending less than what we budgeted for. And that's a really good thing as well. We're not going over budget. We're not like going into debt. So that's a really good thing. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the fund balance. So as you saw, like every year we're spending not all the money that we're budgeting for. So you'll see that the red bar, okay, so go back a little bit. So the blue bar is what we think we're gonna be saving. So as the school year is going through, we're thinking like, oh, we're not gonna spend all the money that we're gonna budget for. That's very normal, that's fine. That's the blue bar. The red bar is the actual amount of money that we saved. So we're always saving more than we think we're gonna save. Does that make sense? So like we think we're gonna have like 3 million extra, but actually, we have 5. I'm just making up those numbers. But for each of those years, it's kind of like that scenario, which is a really good thing. Typically, national averages, we're looking at 4% to 10, maybe 15% of the total budget as the fund balance. So we don't want to be like saving way too much money because then we're way over budgeting and not spending it. That's not really as accurate as you want. But you also don't want to be like only 1 or 2% because you don't want to cut it too close and then all of a sudden not have enough money. So the picture that we see here is that there's 2 years where we have $35 million extra, which is awesome, but we have been spending that down. So 23, 24, there's less, and then this year we're also projecting less. So that means that we're kind of digging into that savings, which I know Superintendent Ludwig and the board is also aware of. So we're looking at definitely some headwinds. I've heard from the state that there's a PERS that's coming down the line. There's different costs are increasing, so we have to also budget for that. Teachers, staff always have to get raises. So every year our budget is going to be increasing because every year the expenses are going to be increasing. So we have to take into account all of those things. So this is just a picture to show. For this year, we're really looking at like still about $10 million of fund balance left over, and that's the latest data from the end of November. So we don't have anything more recent than that, but that's the best that we know so far. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is just like a general overview. I know the numbers may be a little bit hard to read here, but the inner donut is what our budget consisted of. And again, I'm talking about the general budget here. The general fund, we're not talking about buildings, we're just talking about salaries and items that are purchased or contracts. The inner donut is from 2018, 2019. The outer donut is our current school year, 2024, 2025. So the biggest chunk that you'll see for both of them is the light blue, which is teaching and learning, which is wonderful, right? We all want to pay our teachers, and obviously the bulk of our expenses as a school district is got to be paying teachers, right? We're not a business. We're in this business of people, right? We have to be using most of our money for teachers, and that's great to see. And then you do see that there's chunks in there for school administration. So we did separate out school administration versus central district administration. And then we also have other district admin, which a lot of it actually is purchase services, items, so this is including all salaries, but also includes like the items that are purchased as well. So we do see a little bit of a shift of lower percentage in teaching. So it went from 80% to 77% over those few years. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this last slide before I pass it on to my colleagues here, just quick summary. So what would I suggest? I mean, first thing I think will be great if we have just more accurate budgeting, and I know that's easy to say but hard to do. So if we can get a little bit closer, I would say, compared to our projection to the actuals, that would be wonderful. There's multiple ways we can do that. An independent budget analysis would be one way, having an outside expert to come just take a look at what we have, and maybe they could make some suggestions. And then another suggestion would be to create a 5-year plan, because we don't know what the world's going to be like. No one really knows. So wouldn't it be great if we could at least make some projections, like we have teacher contract information, we have a lot of our union contract information. Those are all multi-year. So we should know how much money they're going to get raised for the next few years. And we can sort of project a little bit how much more state funding we might be getting. So if we use some of those data that we have, we could potentially have a more clear picture of what our budget might be looking like in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 5 years. Obviously, no one's going to know for sure what's going to happen in the future, but if we at least try, then we can tweak it year to year. That way we're not just planning 1 year to the next, that we can have a little bit longer term mindset on that. And then, like I said when I started, we always want to have less expenses and more revenue. So a couple ways. I'm just gonna, point it out here, but I'm sure all my colleagues and my colleagues later in the panels have also wonderful solutions, and that's why we're here, is to provide some solutions. So decreasing some redundant services, redundant staff, maybe have people be cross-trained across different jobs. Increasing revenues, increasing enrollment, that's a big thing, right? So if we have more students, we get more funding from the district or from the state. So that would be a big one. And then identifying some grant money from whether it's from federal, state, or local sources. We have some great ideas that will be coming up soon, even just in our neighboring districts. So please stay tuned and watch and listen to those. And then also advocacy. We have wonderful board members here who are doing great work advocating for us at the state level. So if we can get some big changes at the state level, that would be fantastic, not just for our district, but for all of our districts in Oregon. So that's all I had. Thank you.